Saturday, the 11th day in the month of April 2026. Warm welcome to Matters Arising, a weekly conversation that critically discusses and analyzes matters of national interest. We're exactly a month away from the dissolution of Parliament as enshrined in our Constitution, meant to pave way for the 3 months of official campaign for the general election scheduled for the second Thursday of every August every 5 years. Second Thursday this year falls on the 13th. Preparations have been the center of activities for most political parties. Conventions for some have been held, others currently being held, others are planning to hold them. Choosing of presidential candidates is the main activity in most of these political parties. The discourse on who is likely to win is also what some Zambians have been talking about. Can the ruling UPND retain power this year? Have they performed to the satisfaction of the general citizenry? Do we have a formidable opposition that has demonstrated the stamina to unseat the ruling party? With all the confusion in the opposition, as the opposition presented themselves as an attractive alternative to the people in place of the UPND, has the state equally created an enabling environment for the said opposition to thrive? Has the rule of law truly been respected in the last 5 years? These are some among other issues we shall attempt to analyze critically on tonight's edition of Matters Arising. I'm your host, as always. My name is Paul Shingongo. To help me analyze these and many other related matters, I host 46-year-old Zambian politician who is a certified accountant. Sean Tembo is my guest tonight. Records indicate that he holds a bachelor's degree in accountancy from the Copperbelt University. Records also indicate that he holds a master's degree in business administration obtained from the University of Derby in England of the United Kingdom. An interesting fact about Sean Tembo is that he's a former police officer who served in his last rank as assistant superintendent under the Zambia Police Service. He's currently the president of Patriots for Economic Progress, a political party that participated in the 2021 general election, which saw Sean Tembo getting a bare 1,113 votes, the whole country, which represented 0.04%. In 2019, he was part of the opposition alliance consisting of 10 political parties, but he left, citing pride among other political parties who believed they were capable of winning without any political alliance. In 2024, he had joined the United Kwacha Alliance, another alliance of political parties, but was expelled together with Apostle Dan Pule, citing violations of Uka's core principles. He later joined the Tonse Alliance, but alas, the spell of moving away from alliances followed him even in Tonse. He withdrew from the alliance last year. Sean Tembo's lens on critical matters is our topic of discussion tonight. President Sean Tembo, welcome to Matters Arising, and thank you for honoring my invitation tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Shingogo, and of course, a very good evening to all the viewers and listeners out there. Maybe just a point of correction, Mr. Shingogo. I was not expelled from the United Kwacha Alliance. As you may recall, we left the United Kwacha Alliance, that is myself, Apostle Dan Pule, President Edgar Lungu, and the other presidents to form the Tonse Alliance. So that is a misrepresentation of facts.
You are not expelled.
Maybe you can withdraw that.
Of course, it can be withdrawn because that is what came from Uka. Remember, the instances that happened during that period. They claimed they had expelled
From
you.
who exactly?
Yeah, from the leaders of Uka then. They had claimed that they had expelled you because you violated. There was even a letter, and I'll share with the public before we end.
Can you cite a specific person? Uka. Of course, Uka is no more. A lot of the other guys left, but I want a specific person who said I was expelled, because that's a serious misrepresentation of facts.
I remember the chairperson then, I don't know, there's two chairperson, Sakwiba Sikota,
yes,
indicating to the public that these have been expelled from the party.
There was no such indication. When we left Uka, it was a very amicable departure, actually. There was no commotion, there was no disparaging each other in the public domain. There was no such thing. So that one is probably a figment of your imagination.
No, I'll not agree to
I
that.
recall very correctly. Because even after we left Uka, we still maintained very good relations with even Sakura Scott himself. We even did a number of activities together with him. So there wasn't commotion or confrontation to the extent that any of them can end up disparaging, myself or any other person. There was no such thing.
So you're not expelled, as I indicated in my intro. No. Well, let's leave it there.
There wasn't even any bad blood between ourselves and the colleagues we left in Uka, like Ali Karawa, Sakura Skota, Sharagateka. We just left amicably. Yeah.
Let's leave it there as per your clarification.
All right, we can proceed.
Indeed. Remember that this is an interactive program. We do enjoy hearing from you. We are coming to you live on our various platforms, as always, live on Topstar, live on GoTV, live on DSTV, also live on Zuku and Star Times, but also live on our Facebook page, that is Prime Television Zambia. I would like you to go there, drop in your comments, questions, and contributions. We'll be glad, before we end the show, to hear from you. But also there is a number on your screen. Time allowing, we should also open the phone lines and get to hear from you. You've been very quiet of late in my view, especially commenting on recent happenings in the country, both the ruling and the UPND. Am I wrong?
Well, when you look at the issue of providing checks and balances, it's basically twofold. Yeah. There's an issue where you point out what the government of the day is doing wrongly. Like why are you exporting our electricity, giving us load shedding? Why are you not sorting out the toilets at your University of Zambia? Why did it have to lead to someone dying in a sewer system? Why are you not paying farmers on time? This and that. That is one aspect of it. The other aspect is where you provide your own alternative solutions to national issues, the problems facing the nation. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about the issue of load shedding? What are you going to do about the issue of unemployment? What are you going to do about the issue of the collapsing economy? You understand? So for us, our structure of providing checks and balances and alternative solutions to national problems is we mix it. And of late, we've been focusing more on us providing alternative solutions to national problems. We've been focusing more on amplifying our manifesto. What do we believe needs to be done in the agriculture sector? What do we believe needs to be done and why in the mining sector? The reason we've been focusing on that is we are going towards an election. And in an election, our considered view is that the issues that matter most to the people is what you're going to do for the people, as opposed to what the current guys are doing wrongly. And the other aspect of it, Mr. Shingongo, is that, for the UPND, I think it's a waste of effort to point out what they've done wrongly or what they continue to do wrongly, because people can see for themselves. I don't need to amplify the fact that there's a total failure of leadership when you have a sanitation crisis, a toilet crisis at Unza, or when the commander of the Zambia National Service is dishing out money to students in apparent bribery. I don't need to tell the people that there's something wrong with that. People can see for themselves. So to a large extent, the UPND are able to do what we are supposed to do in terms of the work of amplifying their mistakes. They are able to amplify them by themselves. So that leaves us, as patriots for economic progress, with one task. because people are, disappointed. People are, they want hope. So how do we give people hope? What can we do about the current situation? So that's what our focus is. I'm sure you saw the launch of our manifesto. I'm sure you also saw the debates around our alternative budgets. I'm sure you've seen the debates around our position that in the past 5 years or so, a significant amount of money has gone missing in the Treasury. And it has brought about a lot of debate, and we've been addressing those debates. So those are the issues we would rather talk about, and what we're going to do, differently to turn around the situation for the benefit of the Zambian people. Yeah, that's our focus. So we haven't been quiet, to answer your question. Yeah.
Awesome. How do you assess your growth, both as a politician and also as patriots for economic progress? We can date as far back as 2018. Have you grown politically? Have you grown in terms of popularity as a party? Because many people can also look back in terms of your performance in 2021. You got 1,813 votes, which was just 0.04 of the total votes cast, countrywide. Do you agree also with those that are set based on your performance even in 2021? That
Just 5 years ago.
Yeah, that Sean Tembo is actually a political non-entity. Look at the number of votes he managed to get in 2021.
So 5 years, Mr. Shigogo, is a very long time. It's a very long time. 5 years ago, when the President Hakainde Hichilema went to the Copper Belt, people were cheering him all over the place. This time around, when he goes to the Copper Belt, they throw stones at him. That's how long 5 years is. It's a very long period of time in politics. To answer your question, have we grown as a party? Have I grown as a politician? Yes, I have. I'm just coming back from a tour. The other weekend, we were in Luangwa. We went to attend a church service at the Anglican Church in Luangwa. We attended Palm Sunday with them. And I was shocked. You go to the market, everybody identifies you. You understand? You go to church, people are calling you by your name. You understand? For someone who never occupied government office before, I think we've made phenomenal growth. Because most of the political leaders are people who were in the public domain previously, either as cabinet ministers or as members of parliament, or maybe as editors of newspapers, in the case of Fred Membe, and so on and so forth. So they were already in the public domain, and then they just leveraged off that public, popularity to then start a political career or to launch a presidential bid. I was just a chartered accountant running my audit firm when I decided to launch into politics. So our performance in 2021 was expected. By the way,
it was expected.
Yes, it was expected. By the way, we beat a lot of other veteran politicians.
Three.
Yes, including well-established political parties like NAREP. NAREP is a well-established party. It has been there since 2011. So we are proud of the strides we've made. Last weekend, we traveled on Wednesday to the Copper Belt. We were in Mpongwe. We visited some chiefs there. We proceeded to Luansha on Saturday. We attended a church service at the Seventh-day Adventists. The reception was warm there. Apparently, just as we were leaving, the police came and started harassing the church elders at that Seventh-day church to say, why was Sean Tembo here? And did he have a permit to address the congregants? Which is laughable because you don't need a permit to attend a church service. Of course, I did address the congregants. I was given the opportunity to greet the people and, just share a few insights. But apparently, the police were not very happy with that. Yeah, and then on Sunday, we were in Kitwe. I attended, together with my colleagues, a church service at St. Anthony of Padua parish in Kamakonde, that is in Kitwe West. That area as you are proceeding to Karoroshi. It was a packed parish. We interacted. The support was overwhelming there as well. And then we proceeded to Mfulira. We, met some people there. There was a youth camp meeting for one of the Pentecostal churches in Mfulira. We attended that. We proceeded to Chiriaombwe, passed through Chingola, then came back to Lusaka on Tuesday. So all these interactions were very interesting. And, if like you drop by the roadside, you are on the highway, you go on the roadside, you want to buy some kandoro, to take home. And one of my youth chairmen says, Namveshivava. And then the women there are just looking at me, like they don't recognize me. And then he says, Sean Tembo tamawo mfapo. Then they'll be, Sean Tembo. You understand? Like there's that, if you can't recognize the face, at least the name will ring a bell. You understand? Yeah. And, in terms of making political progress, I think that's what matters, really. So when you go and do a tour, like when we start the official campaigns without police harassment, what we'll be doing will be consolidating on what has already been built. We will not be starting scratch the way we did in 2021. We have a brand. Sean Tembo is a brand in Zambia as we speak right now. And we'll build on that brand.
So it's not true that you're a political non-entity?
Of course, we don't expect our political competitors to say nice things about us, do you? unless you tell me you expect our competitors to say, Sean Tembo is a big brand, he's winning this election. Do you expect that? I would be shocked if you expected that. Yeah, so that's to answer your question.
From your establishment, Proud 2021, it seems like you've always embraced the idea of being part of alliances. Look at what happened in 2018.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, you've 2018, 2019, you had joined that opposition alliance. 2024, you had joined. 2025.
We've always had appetite to mingle with our colleagues, to collaborate with our colleagues. We've always had that appetite. Even as we speak right now, we still have that appetite.
It's still there.
Yeah, it's still there. It's always there. It's just that things don't always pan out the way we expect them. And for us, we are principled because we are independent. We can do what we want when we want to do it. We can field in an election. We can go around the country and canvass votes. We can, we don't need to ride on somebody's back. You understand? Yeah, you'll find that when you go in an alliance, the majority of political parties who are going there are going into the alliance to benefit from the alliance, not to contribute to the overall success of the alliance, but to benefit from the alliance. You understand? For us, when we go into an alliance, we go there not because we can't do it on our own, not because we can't do countrywide tours on our own as PEP. We do that. We've always done that. Not because we can't field as a presidential candidate on our own. We've been on the ballot before. When you look at most of the political leaders who are talking right now, very few of them have been on the ballot. And there's that experience of being on the ballot, knowing the process of being on the ballot, how to campaign. We've been there. So when we go into an alliance, we go there because we want to collaborate with our colleagues so that we can build something bigger than any of the individual political parties, bigger than their political party, bigger than our political party. We can leverage on one another.
But you always fall off from these alliances.
That can only be based on sincerity. You understand? Yes. Where you sit, when you're conceiving an alliance, you have the ideas and say, what do we want to achieve? And how are we going to achieve it? So you put those ideas on the table and say, yeah, this looks good. I look at it, it looks good. I go to my members at PEP and say, guys, listen, there's this proposal to join UKA or to join Tonse Alliance or to join any other alliance. And they say, what are the specifics of that alliance? Because you can't just blindly join. You need to know what is in it for us. How are we going to leverage with our brothers to build something bigger? You understand? Yes. And then you explain to them, they say, that looks good. Yeah, let's go for it. Then I come back to my colleagues and say, guys, my members say we go for it, so we shall go for it. Then you launch the alliance. And then along the way, you find that people begin to depart from what you agreed. And most of the time it's written in a document, in a constitution, signed by all the parties. And then they begin to depart. And most of the time, I would draft that document. I like drafting documents. So even when we were in the UPND Alliance, I drafted the memorandum of agreement that we signed at Pamoja Hotel in 2019.
You drafted it?
I drafted it. And Even in the Tonse Alliance, I drafted the constitution for the Tonse Alliance. So you find that, and I like to write things in very plain English so that they're not subject to different interpretations. You understand? Because I know people like to...
Why is it you that drafts?
I just have an appetite to draft documents.
So
So I would offer.
Okay,
I would offer. Not that others are not capable, but I would normally offer. And people would say, yeah, let him come up with a draft. And then I proceed and draft. So along the way, you find people become less sincere, and then they begin to depart from what you agreed. You understand? And then they begin to do things which are contrary. And then remember, you are coming from somewhere. You are not an individual. You are coming from a political party, and you took a certain package to your party for your party to have appetite to say, go and join. Let's join. You understand? So when people begin to depart, your party members begin to ask and say, but that's not what we understand this alliance to be. And then so the conflicts begin, and then for us, when the conflicts begin, we don't like these internal conflicts. Not that we don't have appetite to fight. We have appetite to fight, but we'd rather fight the ruling party than fight fair opposition. You understand? The appetite to fight we have is just for the ruling party. So the moment internal fights begin, whether in an alliance or whatever, we prefer to excuse ourselves and say, you know what, guys, we came together in good faith, so it's better we live in an amicable manner so that when we meet at these funerals, we meet in the field, we can still hug, we can still laugh.
But why is it that it's you that leaves? The European
It's
Alliance.
not only me who lives. Where is Uka now?
Yeah, but Pep.
Answer my question. Where is Uka now?
Yeah. No, but
where is Uka now?
Among the first ones to leave.
Yes, because I saw that it wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
So we left Uka, for instance.
You left the European Alliance first. You left Uka.
Let me finish. I don't want this to be an argument.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you want to talk, you can talk.
No.
If you want me to talk,
I actually wanted us to begin from the European Alliance before we get to the Uka.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, that's the long and short of it. Yeah.
Why is it that you?
Because we are principled and we can stand on our own. Others are not able to live because they've got nowhere to go. Live and do it. Live and do it. Even when they come for meetings during the alliance, they need to be given transport money to go back where they came from. So they live and go where? You understand? To answer your question, they live and go where? For us, we can live and go back to PEP, and then even mobilize PEP, go around the country, visit the Copper Belt, visit the North on our own as a party, because we're a vibrant party. You understand? That's the difference. That's why we are able to live. We've got somewhere to go. Others can't live because they've got nowhere to go.
Yeah. You seemed quite invested in Tonse, and many people actually to date wonder how you managed to live. Like you've stated yourself, you even drafted, the constitution of Tonse. You seemed to even defend it, wholeheartedly, even after the death of ECL. Are you happy with what's happening in Tonse?
Well, Mr. Shingogo, I wouldn't want to talk about other political groupings. You understand? I would rather talk about the Patriots for Economic Progress because it's my grouping. Tonse Alliance has a spokesperson as we speak. And that spokesperson
of which
is
you
the
were
best.
A spokesperson.
Yes, that spokesperson is the best pressed person to talk about Tonse. Otherwise, if I begin to talk about Tonse, everybody will be saying, sour grapes. It's like you leave a woman, you leave a woman, but every time you're talking about that woman, so why did you leave her? Go back to her. Apparently, it looks like you still want that woman. You understand? So I'm not in that business, really. Unfortunately.
I understand and greatly appreciate it, but as one that, was greatly, invested in the establishment of Tonse, like you corrected earlier, that you actually left Uka to form Tonse. You're not expelled from Uka. You left, Uka to form Tonse, something that you established, you formed, and in its current state, as a spectator, how do you look at it?
Yeah. So I didn't want to comment about Tonse because Tonse has a spokesperson, and that person is not me. So, yeah.
Do you regret leaving Tonse?
Of course, I don't regret. How can I regret? It was a conscious decision based on consultation with our party members. So, of course, definitely not.
You don't regret leaving?
Definitely not.
Would you return back if an olive branch was given to you?
Very unlikely. Very unlikely. But politics being what it is, you can never say never. I'm being honest with you.
But very unlikely to.
Very unlikely, yeah.
To return.
Yes.
Has the olive branch been given to you? Yet.
Of course not. What do you mean by olive branch?
Yeah, an invitation to rejoin Tonse.
No, that wouldn't constitute an olive branch. By far.
Has an invitation been given to you to rejoin?
No. I don't need an invitation to join Tonse.
To rejoin Tonse.
I don't need an invitation to rejoin Tonse if I wanted to rejoin Tonse, but I don't want to rejoin Tonse because, at the end of the day, Mr. Shingogo, it's about the ability to make some progress. That's what I believe in. Politics is a very expensive undertaking, and you don't want to be there doing nothing. Okay? You've seen the progress we've made as PEP. Yes. We launched our manifesto. First of all, we presented our alternative budget for 2026. We proceeded to launch our manifesto. We proceeded to begin undertaking these district visits under the disguise of attending church sessions, of course. We visited so far a total of about 13 districts across the country, from northern to Muchinga to Copperbelt to eastern. The only places we are yet to touch is Central Province, Western Province, Southern Province, and Luapula. Yes. So we have those 4 provinces we haven't touched. But we've been moving. We've been meeting people. We've been visiting our structures. That is something that we were not able to do previously while we were belonging to some of these alliances. Why? Because decisions in an alliance have to be made by a lot of people, so you find that there's that procrastination. Instead of saying, let's move, let's go to Nakonde, let's start off tomorrow. No, but someone brings a consideration, another consideration. Oh, okay, then let's reschedule to next week. The next week, let's reschedule to that other week. So it's difficult, in my observation, it was difficult to really make political progress, to really be on the ground and mobilize and make quick decisions and make an impact. But when you are in an individual political party, me, I'm a decision maker. So if my chair mobilization calls me and say, President, we've been invited to attend a church service in Petauke. Maybe we can also visit Chieftainess Majawantu and Ruembe and Kalindawaro. What do you think? When do we leave? The service is on Saturday. We need to leave tomorrow. I say, I just need to check my pockets and ask it, Chair Treasury, do you have the resources for us to travel? If the resources are there, tomorrow we are setting off. As simple as all that. So in an alliance, there is a lot of inertia, that's my observation, to make decisions. And you find that time is moving. People like to have meetings and then more meetings.
In an alliance.
Yes, and more meetings before you make simple, straightforward decisions. So you find that you end up always being in Osaka, having meetings, planning, and then replanning, and then planning again, without really having the opportunity to try and implement any of your plans. So to me, I find that quite a waste of time. So, and then with the passage of time, some Tuma camps begin to form. There is that camp of that guy with that one with that one, and then others approach you and say, us, we can be in your camp. You just need to take care of us. So you start wondering, like, okay, what is the political value of these people? First of all, when you say, I take care of you, what do you mean? So they want you to be sending them, some to my pocket money on a regular basis, so that they can, in those camps, they can affiliate themselves with you. So it becomes a dysfunctional organization. And those challenges were addressed when ECL was still alive, because ECL was very pragmatic. Yeah, they knew ECL. Okay, because a lot of people out there know of the old ECL, the one who was Republican president. I must confess that the ECL, after losing power, was a totally different and better person. Yes, than the ECL who was president of Zambia.
Oh.
That's one of the reasons why I decided to affiliate with him. He was a totally changed
repentant man.
I wouldn't use the word repentant. He was just a changed person for the better. changed person for the better. He was more insightful. He was more pragmatic in terms of decision making. You know, and he was a straightforward person. So the moment he identifies that there are some tumacamps showing or forming within the alliance, he would call the affected parties, sit them down in front of everybody, and tell them off. This is disruptive to the alliance. Can you stop this? Stop that. Don't behave like that. Do you understand?
Yes. Your analysis seems to paint a picture, that it's very difficult for alliances to work. The picture you're painting to the Zambians right now is that quite difficult for alliances to work in this country.
Not just in Zambia, but any country which has the kind of governance system that we have, where they have the first past the post, where as opposed to a parliamentary system. When you hear of alliances, especially in Europe, that normally works in countries, because almost all the countries in Europe, including the UK, have a parliamentary system of democracy. So you find that one political party can rarely form government unless they get into an alliance or a coalition with another, with a number of other political parties. So those other political parties will bring their MPs, and then together they form a coalition and then form government. That's an alliance, really. And that one is beneficial to everybody, because they then allocate each other positions and the city, and they run the government together. When they disagree on certain policy issues, one of the coalition partners may pull away, and if the remaining coalition doesn't form a majority, it may collapse and they go back to an election, or another party can join it to, just the way it is in South Africa, where the ANC are in an alliance with the DA. But so that's a more formal version of an alliance. But in our instance as Zambia, given our first past the post system, an alliance is basically a marriage of convenience, because there's nothing binding you, as opposed to those who have a parliamentary system, whereby what binds you is the fact that you've been able to form government by virtue of your alliance. You understand? Yes. Us, you're just opposing together. So it's a loose arrangement, really. Anyone can walk away at any time. So you find that issues of loyalty come to bear, issues of a lot of those political parties that go to the alliance are political non-entities. They are going to the alliance, to join the alliance, to seek relevance, because by themselves they would not be relevant. You understand? So you find that, like I said, they go to the alliance not to contribute to the overall growth of a collective, but to benefit from the overall collective. So you go there to benefit. You understand? So you are demanding for things. No, us, we never go to participate in campaigns. How come you are always sending Sean Tembo to buy elections? What do you mean sending Sean Tembo to buy elections? Because Sean Tembo goes to those buy elections with his own resources, his own motor vehicles, his own party members, his own money to sleep in lodges and buy food. So if you also have your own party members and your own vehicles and your own money to sleep in lodges, why don't you join the campaign? No one is stopping you. You understand? Yeah. So those begin to become points of conflict in there, because most of the political parties and political party leaders came there to eat, came into the alliance to benefit, as opposed to contribute to
comes also in a different test with the recent statement that the seasoned politician Given Lubinda made this week, indicating making an appeal to the rest of you in the opposition that let us unite, or else we will perish as fools. Meaning this unity also comes with its own attendant challenges, right?
Unity, opposition unity in our context is easily said than achievable. It's easily said than achievable, because the other aspect of it, Mr. Shingongo, is that you're talking about individual political parties who have different ideologies, and these are independent entities. Each one went to registrar of societies, registered themselves, so they are now together, and you're saying they should unite. That's well and good. but then also who is going to lead that so-called alliance? You understand? Because if one person leads, you're basically telling everybody else in that alliance to shelf their presidential ambitions. There's a way it can work. There's a way an alliance can work, but you need to be very thoughtful about it. And when I was given the mandate by ECL to draft the initial terms of reference and subsequent constitution of the Tonse Alliance, I looked at that. And I came with a way to try and circumvent the individual personal interests of the members, to try and address that rather. So in the initial draft of the Tonse Alliance Constitution, we came up with a concept whereby the various political parties would unite around a single presidential candidate, but then they would field at local government and parliamentary level under individual political parties. You understand? Eh? So there, you are trying to appease the individual members to say, okay, look, even if you back that person as president, the personal growth of your individual political parties will still be sustained, because you are guaranteed of walking away with some councillor seats and some parliamentary seats, so that in future, even if this alliance breaks down, you will not feel bad that you just escorted one person to be president. You as a party will also.
But you still be choosing
a single
yeah.
Yes. You understand?
For example, if I to take a water, as alliance members,
you feel under one political party.
Yes, under one political
party.
So
the proposal was to do it per province, so that you don't confuse the voters too much. So you would say, okay, in the Eastern Province, this political party will field. In Western Province, that political. So it was more tenable, because you need to look at it in terms of, is it tenable? You understand? But then with subsequent discussions now, when a number of people came on board, people decided to change that and came up with the concept of an ANCAP, or rather with the
SPV?
concept of a special purpose vehicle. Yes, an SPV. Yeah, the trouble with the concept of a special purpose vehicle is that you're basically saying that everybody else should bury their political ambitions and just back this person with their political party. All the seats across the country under this
using that same SPV. So the rest of you forget support
another
is
time.
particular.
Yes, another time.
So
but this time
that has a problem, right?
It has an inherent problem, because what that does is that you not attract any serious political parties or any serious political party leaders. You only attract these Nikon pops, the one money parties, and then you'll be telling everybody to say, we've got 13 members under our alliance. But who are those 13 members? Who are those 13 members? Can they stand on their own? Are they adding any value, or they are there to try and benefit something? So that is a challenge. In terms of being able to attract a solid political party, like a viable political party, like Patriots for Economic Progress, or Citizens First for Ari Kalava, or Socialist Party for Fred Membe, you need to offer something tangible. Because there's no way any of these people will just abandon their ambitions and go and back this guy in the name of unity. It's not workable. So me, when I drafted the initial Tonse Alliance Constitution, I looked at what can be workable, what can be appealing. When I call my brother, let's say Fred or Harry, and say, let's meet. I've got this proposal. It has to be a proposal where they should be able to consider and say, okay, Sean, I think that's something to chew on, not something they would dismiss outright. You understand that? Yeah. So that's the difference really between a workable.
So you don't see this SPV formula working?
I don't see it working in the context of it uniting, adequately uniting the opposition, because there is a perception of unity where people flash all sorts of political parties. They go and wake up some guy who registered a political party 7 years ago, even slept. They go and wake him up. They even helped to design a logo for his party because he didn't even have a logo. And then they get the logo and put among the list of their logos and say, we are now 12 political parties. You understand? So that's like burying your head in the sand. Do those political parties have influence? Do they have resources? Because you need to have some resources to contribute to the movement so that collectively you can achieve and try to measure up to the ruling party. You understand? So, people, what I notice is that very few people are logical.
Really?
Yes, out there, very few people are logical. So they
some might not be very happy with that statement you're making, especially.
Well, I'm not mentioning any individual person.
I'm just saying,
but very few people are logical out there. People start thinking of sharing the meat before slaughtering the impala. When you're chasing an impala in the bush, the focus should be to catch the impala.
Then the sharing comes later.
Yes. But if you're chasing and thinking of how to share it, then you're not being very logical. So that's the challenge in most of these.
But that's how most of these alliances have been working, where you even draft, look, this one will be the running mate, this one will be the ministers will come from this political party.
Yes.
Yes.
But the challenge with going in an alliance and thinking about your share of the spoils is that you want to have the biggest share. If you're going in an alliance, let's say you're chasing an impala and the focus is to catch the impala, then you would want as many resources to catch it as possible. So you say, Iwe Joseph, pitira huko, Iwe Samuel, enda huko, Iwe enda huko, so that you surround the impala, because the focus is what? To catch it. Then you catch it. But if the focus is sharing it, you think, if I send Joseph and Samuel to assist, this impala looks like it's tired already. So it doesn't require much effort to catch it. So if I send Joseph and Samuel to assist, the sharing will be a problem. You'll probably want a hind leg. What am I going to be left with? So you become a little bit selfish.
Selfish, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yet you haven't caught the impala yet. So you'd rather chase it alone. And if anyone is going to assist you, it will be just small children from your own household. So that even as you share, you don't need to give them, they'll eat from the same pot.
That's a picture of what's happening right now.
Yes. You understand? So, but to really catch that impala, what you need are people who are as vibrant as you. So you need Joseph there and someone there to really surround this impala, catch it.
In the current context, President Tembo, do you see any opposition political party, PEP inclusive, having the capacity to unseat the UPND alone without any formation of alliance?
Yes. Because
that's a problem you had actually in 2019 when you left that alliance, because you thought some political parties thought they didn't need an alliance.
The circumstances were totally different then. They were totally different, unless you don't follow politics.
No, I do. That's why I'm making reference to it.
I'm explaining to you that the circumstances of the 2021 election were totally different. Because in the 2021 election, for me, that's a misrepresentation, actually, to say that I thought that what did you say again? You said
some political parties thought they were able to
do it by themselves. That's
a statement.
But the reality is that in 2021, UPND was capable of winning by themselves. And for me, I made it very clear. So even that UPND alliance where they brought in it wasn't really necessary, because the wind of change was blowing at that time, and they were the most formidable. So they were capable of winning. That's a reality. You can't run away from that, because it's a fact. But let me not digress. You asked a very important question, and I want to explain it to the viewers out there. Is any individual political party capable of winning this election without uniting? When you talk about opposition unity, it can come by your own volition as individual political parties. You come together, you back a single candidate, use one SPV, whatever the case, whatever the model. Or the Constitution can compel you to unite.
The Constitution?
Yes. So, in this particular election, my view is that, voluntary opposition unity among political parties may not be attainable.
Really?
Yes, but the Constitution is going to compel us to unite.
Voluntary unity
Yes.
might not be possible in
Yes.
this election.
Yes.
Unless the Constitution compels
Yes.
you. Please elaborate what you mean.
Yes. So, my view is that when we go into this election, mind you, we are paying nomination fees for presidential candidates on the 15th, beginning 15th to 29th. Yeah. My guess is that there is going to be a flurry of presidential candidates, even some we've never heard of. Yeah, they will be on the ballot. And my considered view is that we are not going to have less than 20 presidential candidates. Not less than 20. That's my considered view. Because if you allow me to digress a bit, even the ruling party, the UPND, they've been registering some friendly political parties of late. They've registered more than 10.
Really?
Yes, in the past 5 years.
The ruling UPND has been registering.
The government, through their party, yeah. Most of these who have been registered are pro-UPND. I saw those when we were in Tonse. They would come asking to join, and then I would do some background check. I find that that one is a UPND guy. He had that position. So there are a lot of them. There are a lot of them who approached us to try and join Tonse, but yet they are not known. But my take is that they may be.
You're accusing the UPND right now, actually, of.
They may be on
You're accusing the government right now of registering some political parties.
But how is that an accusation?
Yeah, because there's no proof, there's no evidence.
Mr. Shingogo, you are digressing from a more important
No, but
issue
because that's also an accusation on the
Who registers political parties?
Register of societies, right?
It's part of what? Government or?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, but how?
Yeah, thank you. That's what I wanted. That's the answer I wanted. Register of societies, part of government. If you allow me to proceed, because people want some logical explanation of
Please
the point.
Go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, some of these questions, Mr. Shingogo, you can ask them at the end. If you keep interrupting, you are disturbing the flow of the conversation.
I understand, but also if the ruling UPND is
watching, that's why I'm saying that.
Is watching right now. No, because I might lose the thought. But please go ahead.
That's why I put a pen and the paper.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah. Some of these, to my points, you want to follow up on, ask as a good presenter. You're supposed to note them. When I finish explaining, then you ask. If you keep interrupting because you're afraid of forgetting, that's why you've got a pen and a paper.
I'm not even afraid of forgetting, but just at the point where
you want to disturb the flow of the conversation.
No, we can still get back, because which other political parties, for example, can you claim that?
Okay, let's move on to more substantive issues. Yeah. So next time you feel like interrupting, just note your point. When I finish explaining.
You're explaining something
about... You can ask all you want. You understand? Are we agreed? Yes. So that it doesn't become boring, because I'm getting bored a bit. Yeah, so I was saying that you can either unite voluntarily as individual political parties, or the Constitution can compel you to unite. Okay, that's a very important point, which I want to explain. Am I able to explain? Am I allowed to explain?
President Tembo, go ahead.
Okay, so, like what we've been attempting to do as opposition, we are trying to do it on our own, so that as we go into this election, we can be united, BCG. Maybe not everybody, but substantively all the key opposition leaders can be united. My hope is that that happens, but in the back of my mind, I'm cognizant of the fact that it is unlikely to happen. So we are most likely going to go into this election very divided. Okay? But the UPND, despite our division as opposition, the UPND will by far not be able to get that 50% plus one.
They can't get 50 plus one?
Yes. So if they get 30%, they'll be very lucky.
Really?
If the UPND gets 30% or more than 30%, between 30 and 35% of this election, they'll be very lucky.
Despite what's happening to you in the opposition?
They would have done a lot. They would have overperformed, actually. So we inevitably will go to a rerun. Inevitably, we're going to a rerun. And in a rerun, a presidential rerun, That is where the Constitution will now compel us to unite. Because in the rerun, there will be two presidential candidates. I believe that President Hakainde Hichilema will be one of them. And there will be one opposition candidate. So you'll be going into that rerun with about 70% of the people across the country having voted against President Hakainde Hichilema. Okay? Of course, at that point, the UPND will be desperate. So they will do what they always do. Try to buy off other opposition leaders, those who stood in the previous election, so that they can now go and endorse and support President Hakainde Hichilema in his campaign in the second round. And they may succeed with that. Because, there's too much poverty across the country, so people easily get bought off. But despite the leaders who may have stood in the first round being bought off, their supporters and the people who voted for them, the electorate, will not go with their endorsement of President Hakainde Hichilema. Because it's almost impossible that a person who voted against President Hakainde Hichilema in the first round will have a sudden change of mind and then vote for him in the second round, no matter how much campaigning you do. It has never happened anywhere in the world, ever since the history of presidential reruns. The moment you go to a presidential rerun, the ruling party, the incumbent president is gone. So President Hakainde Hichilema will lose this election. He may not lose it in the first round. It's very unlikely for him to lose it in the first round, primarily because he has done a good job of dividing the opposition. But he will definitely lose it in the second round. There's no question about it. People would come to me and say, but Mingalato, UPND, they'll manipulate the vote or they'll rig the election. Rigging an election is something that is easier said than done. You understand? Especially a presidential election. If rigging a presidential election was as easy as people put it, right now as we speak, UNIP was still going to be in power. We wouldn't have had UNIP and then kicked out, and then MMD and then kicked out, and then PF and then kicked out, and then UPND who are about to be kicked out. That is not to say that you cannot manipulate an election. You can manipulate an election, but only within a very limited scope, not on a large enough scope needed to turn around a general election. That is why you'll find that most of the ruling parties, not just the UPND, but most ruling parties, including the PF, they would win almost all the by-elections and then lose bitterly in a general election. The Patriotic Front, prior to 2021, around 2019, we had a number of by-elections, Western Province, parliamentary by-elections, and they won those by-elections in Western Province with a landslide. Okay, not just by a small margin, but by a landslide. And some people were debating and saying, Western Province is gone now. I think it has shifted to PF. I think they've lost hope from UPND. So when they were counting strongholds, they were counting Western Province as well. So I used to tell them, say, look, these are by-elections. Even MMD used to do the same. You understand? And then the general election came. PF did not win a single councillor in Western Province. Not a single councillor. Later on, parliamentary seat. You understand? So the dynamics of a by-election and the dynamics of a general election are totally, completely different. Totally, completely different. So if the UPND hope they can cling to power by manipulating the election, they better come up with a different plan.
Some have indicated that, look, it seems quite very predictable that the UPND will retain power because of the notable fulfilled promises that the Zambians keep on talking about. The president has been doing new on a number of things that they promised to the Zambians. And some people have been saying, look, what is there to argue? They promised a number of things and these have been achieved. Don't you think that some of the results that they've achieved will speak for them in this election?
So, if you ask me, Mr. Shingogo, I can't think of anything that the UPND has really achieved. Right?
Anything?
No.
You can't think of anything that they've
nothing.
achieved?
No, nothing. Because if you allow me, I'll run through what they argue they've achieved. I'll start with CDF. So they argue, no, we've increased CDF from 1.6 million to 32 million, 33 million, whatever it is. As a matter of fact, that is just propaganda. Because when CDF was at 1.6 million, it was used for purposes of doing petty projects in the community. You understand? Just petty projects in the community. What the UPND did when they increased it from 1.6 to about 32 million is that they merely got the budget lines, operational budget lines, from 3 ministries. You understand? They got the budget line from Ministry of Home Affairs, they got the budget line from Ministry of Education, they got the budget line from Ministry of Health. And then those budget lines were put under CDF. You understand? I'm speaking that competently because I prepare alternative national budgets. I've been doing that for the past 8 years or so. Now, when you look at those budget lines which they've gotten from these ministries, you add them together, you find that they add up to almost $1 billion kwacha. But so effectively, they've reduced the allocation from these 3 ministries to 30 million kwacha, from about $1 billion. That's what they've done. So you find that now, instead of a Land Cruiser for the police being bought under Ministry of Home Affairs, the way RB did in 2011 before elections, it is now bought under CDF. You understand? And that is not adequate. You are actually reducing the allocation, not increasing it. Because I'll give you an example. When the RB bought Land Cruisers in 2011, he bought for each and every police station. Okay, when President Hakainde Hichilema bought Land Cruisers under CDF, he bought per constituency. Okay, so there are a lot of constituencies which have more than one police station. I'll give you an example. Munari constituency. Munari constituency has Simon Monsaka police station. It has Chilson police station. It has what was the IBEX? They have now called it what is that? Twin Pump. Yes. So 3 police stations. So now you are buying 1 Land Cruiser for this whole constituency for 3 police stations to share. Under RB, he bought a Land Cruiser for each police station. So which one is better? So this so-called CDF is just a way to hoodwink the people. Not that there's an improvement in terms of increasing the resource allocation. It's actually a huge reduction. You understand? I'll move, if you allow me. I can go on and on and on. The bottom line, Mr. Shingogo, is that in reality there's nothing.
Free education.
There's nothing that the UPND have actually achieved. You understand? Free education, when you look at the amounts that people were paying and when they were charging for education, you find that in most instances, those amounts were negligible. The thing that was preventing people from going to school were really the amenities like uniforms, school books, and what. So if you make free
that was what was preventing people from going to school, because they don't have uniforms.
It was because if you look at the allocation that was the school fees for primary, let's just consider primary for instance, people were paying less than 100 kwacha for
1 to 7. It was free even before the UPNG anyway. So the free education is from 1 going up.
Yes. So you'll find that the overall significance of that is very minimal in terms of really improving the welfare of the people. And most of these things, you take for instance, if you go out there, you find that ideally free education is supposed to achieve greater levels of education among the population, isn't it? you go to an average neighborhood, especially in Osaka, you find that the majority of the people now are taking their kids to private schools at primary school level. There is a mushrooming of private schools around. You know why? Because free education, you go there and you find that there are 150 pupils in a classroom, and the teacher is not able to mark the exercises on a daily basis of those pupils. And at the end of the day, the parents who want proper education for their children would rather take them to a private school, which is even more expensive. You understand? And you know, a child who goes in a classroom, and is not attended to by a teacher, because there are too many pupils in the classroom, there's not much difference between that child being in that classroom and that child being at home. There's no difference, really. You understand? When you look at, for instance, the so-called school feeding program, which again looks good on paper, just like free education, you find that its actual implementation is nothing to talk home about. You know, they distribute beans to schools. At the beginning, they distributed maize for schools to take to the hammer mill and make into meal meal. They did not provide any cooking oil. They did not provide any tomato. They did not provide any other supplements needed to cook a meal. You understand? And you find that along the way, the maize runs out, and they are not bringing more maize, and the pupils are remaining with beans only. You understand? And they are being told to say, just cook that beans. So how do you cook beans? You don't have salt, you don't have cooking oil, you don't have shima. So it's a mockery. You know, Mr. Shingogo, these policies, if you ask me, on paper, they are supposed to be good policies.
On paper? On
paper, yes. For instance, if you feed children at school, it gives them a motivation to actually attend class. On paper, you understand? But for that policy to actually translate into a good policy, it needs to be properly implemented, wholeheartedly. Government needs to allocate resources to doing that and do it wholeheartedly. But if you're going to pursue a policy just for you to do kwenyu and say, oh, by the way, we've also introduced the school feeding program, and you don't care how it is actually implemented, you don't allocate resources as a government to make sure that that school feeding program is actually properly implemented to the benefit of the pupils, then it's a meaningless exercise.
It's a new program. Possibly the improvements will be made as they go on.
You know where my problem is? You know where my problem is? My problem is for an adult parent, I will not call that adult parent a president or a minister or a permanent secretary, but any adult parent, you understand, in a position of authority, to think that it's okay for pupils to just eat beans. You understand? It's not okay. It's not okay. If you're going to have, a lot of countries in the region have a school feeding program. In fact, all the countries I know of, including Malawi, you understand, who are much lower than us economically, they have a school feeding program. We were one of the last ones in the region to introduce a school feeding program. But it is done in a decent manner. You understand?
But that's not true that it's beans only. Anyway, the president visited Kablonga, visited schools in Kanyama, and we've seen, it's not only beans being offered.
What did the president eat when he went to Kablonga? And I'm glad that those teachers at Kablonga prepared what was there. I want to ask you, what did he eat?
No, I wasn't there, so.
Yeah, so me, I saw on media, he ate beans. So why are you arguing when you are not there and you don't even know what they ate? Are you just
what's wrong with that?
You can't just eat beans. You can't just eat beans. What's wrong with that is that you need to treat these pupils in a decent manner. You need to give them reasonably proper food. You can't just beans, even kujere, even at prison, people have a reasonably balanced diet. So those pupils are not prisoners. They are bona fide citizens. We have a government which moves in a big convoy. At the present when the Copper Belt, there will be more than 100 vehicles traveling, VX, putting fuel. So why are you wasting money on unnecessary trips if that money can be channeled to provide a better diet to the small children.
What would you say? What did you say about
You understand?
the recruitment of civil servants as a score? Something that they pride themselves in. Never happened at any time in the history of this country where 30 teachers, for example, employed at once from the UNIP era till debt.
That's a fallacy.
It's a fallacy.
It's a fallacy. You know, when you are an underperformer, you cling on every little thing as a success, as an achievement. You understand? We never heard the Patriotic Front talk about recruitment. You know why? Because there had enough infrastructure around to point at, to talk about. They could talk about Lusaka International Airport. They could talk about Levi Mwanawasa Hospital. They could talk about the Kalabo Road. They could talk about the Lower Kafua Gorge Power Station. They could talk about a whole lot of other things. They had plenty to talk about. That's why they didn't talk about the recruitment. But every government recruits. That's why we have almost 1 million civil servants when UPND was getting into power. So that is not an achievement. It is like, in the household. In the household, you are talking about your achievements, and then you are saying, well, I bought relish and minimum. Yeah, so that you can eat. Yeah, it's not an achievement.
Yeah, but this is in comparison with what used to happen before, where, for example, in the Patriotic Front there was employment freeze. So from employment freeze to employing this number of people, that definitely the Zambians should be excited about it.
The employment freeze happened in the MMD, not under the PF.
There was employment and wage freeze in the Patriotic Front.
That happened as part of when we were doing those structural adjustment programs. Yeah, the later part of the Mwanawasa regime going into RB regime.
In the Patriotic Front, there was wage freeze, President Tembo. There was employment freeze. I'm not aware about that.
There wasn't any freeze. The PF didn't do any of these structural adjustment programs. It's just the MMD and now the UPND who are trying to do this IMF thing. You understand? I don't know if you've been following Zambia's economic management path. But anyway, my point is the issue of employing the civil servants. If the UPND had made it transparent, that would have been something to talk home about. If we were seeing adverts in the newspapers to say, we are looking for 240 doctors. I saw that the Civil Service Commission announced it today or yesterday, Dr. Beani, that they are recruiting a certain number of doctors. But we don't know where they advertise. We don't know where they conduct the interviews. We don't know who they interview. We're just told you've been recruited. You understand? So, and to me, that challenge was there in the MMD, it was there in the PF, and now it is there in the UPND. So, if under UPND,
of secret recruitment,
yes, if under UPND there was a change. And now things were transparent. Vashta advertised in my newspaper, Vashta advertised by Facebook page, Ministry of Health. We want this number of people. And then people apply. And then they publish all the applicants. Okay? And then they invite them for interviews. And then they shortlist. And then they publish the shortlisted people. And then they do the final selection. And then they publish the final selection. We see a clear sequence of events. Then I would not be shy to applaud them. I would say, they've changed the way we've been doing civil service recruitment. But not just civil service. Even parastatal recruitment. Since when did you last see a job advert in any media from ZESCO, from Zamtel, from any of these parastatals? When? Never. But yet, people join. Want to join? When I'm going to retire, when their contracts get terminated, others are joining. You understand? So that obscurity, to me, is the biggest issue. And if the UPND had addressed that, then it would be something to talk home about. But they've just continued doing what previous administrations have been doing, recruiting in secret, which my government, by the way, will change. Because
you change the issue of secret recruitment.
You should. That's why it's important to travel. Yeah, it's very important to travel. If you go to other countries, I was in Nairobi a few months ago. You buy the main newspapers, the bulk of the adverts there are, recruitment. Even when you go to South Africa, you find the bulk of the adverts there are recruitment in the civil service and in the parastatals. Because the government is the biggest economic player in any economy. You understand? So if you're not transparent the way you recruit, what about someone who has no connections? Alibe Sazbako once, but he's educated. How is he going to get a job? You understand? So to me, the issue of actual recruitment is a non-issue on the part of UPND. Had they improved the way recruitment is done, that would have been something to talk home about. Yeah.
They've also talked about it being an attractive party. We've seen a number of defections from the Patriotic Front, members indicating that, look, they're joining a party of choice now. We're seeing very less defections from other political parties joining the PEP or any other,
Mr. Chicago, again, that one is an overplayed script. Yeah. It's just like the script of winning by-elections. It happened to all previous ruling parties. They would go out there, buy people, make them defect to them. But it has no impact whatsoever in terms of changing the overall electoral mood of the people. No impact.
It comes these people defecting are coming with their own supporters.
If it had an impact, again, UNIP would still have been in power today. Yeah, because people have been defecting to the ruling party since time immemorial. Most of the time, it's not just because they want to go there, but either there's like a docket that they go and show them to say, by the way, Bwana, there's these transgressions you did. Can you come and join us or not? And then they decide, okay, let me join. Or they go with a brown envelope and say, we have this capacity. Can you come and join us? And then you look at all the Tuma problems you have, how you can sort them out with that, whatever is in the envelope. You haven't counted. But
so you think these defections...
You're just imagining that whatever is in that envelope can sort out a lot of problems.
So you think these defections don't mean much?
No, they don't. They don't.
Especially in this year of elections.
They've never meant anything. So, I had very high regard for initially for my brothers in UPND, because most of them are intellectuals. And in addition to that, they were in opposition for a long time. They really fought, So they are seasoned soldiers in politics. You understand? Yeah. So I had very high regard for them, but. I don't know whether it's the softiness of being in government. All their nice, brilliant ideas seem to be escaping them. And when they make a political maneuver, you look at it, you even laugh about it and say, someone seriously made a decision that let's do that. So this issue of defections, it's got no impact whatsoever. And the UPND in general and President Hakainde Hichilema, they have a very uphill battle in this election, primarily because the people are too hungry. Vantunjala in Pakistan, per ground. And people can have other challenges. Like 2021, people were upset with the behavior of cadres from the Patriotic Front. People were upset with those scandals, corruption scandals. People are, upset with a number of things from the PF, But in terms of the stomach, there was something in the stomach. You understand? Yeah. But you fast forward 5 years along the line to today. Of course, we are frustrated with the scandals, where they award each other huge amounts of money through consent judgments, where they gave the contractor for Lusaka and Dollar dual carriageway to start collecting toll fees using money from NAPSA. Doesn't make sense. Even my grandchild, who is about 3 years old, I explained to him that concept, and he kept looking at me and 3-year-old doesn't make sense to him. So yeah, there are these other frustrations that may be there. But the biggest undoing of the UPND is that people are more hungry now than at that time in 2021. So when someone is hungry, it's very difficult that you can say anything to convince them, because I can't tell you that you are full when you are hungry. When you are hungry, you are hungry. Your stomach will remind you in case your brain is trying to forget. You understand? So that's the biggest challenge. So even when the UPND or President Hakainde Hichilema talks about sort sana, kwenyu, people say kwenyu because they've been given some motivation for that particular event. But if you go to the compound and tell the people in the compound that vote for President Hakainde Hichilema because we are the sort sana team,
as we
it will not really help you to secure any votes.
As we wrap up the conversation, directors has sent it to me time. As we wrap up this conversation, I remember 10 months ago, you confirmed actually to us as Prime TV the death of ECL. I remember making that call to you, and you made that confirmation of ECL passing on. 10 months down the line, ECL is still unburied. Sometimes people forget, they claim to have moved on, but this is huge. This is our 60th Republican president who is yet to be buried. What do you make, in conclusion, what do you make of this delayed burial impasse? And if you are in the shoe of President Hakainde Hichilema, and also in the shoe of the Lungu family, what would be your direction?
First of all, it's very regrettable, and it's something that has never happened before, that you can keep a body for this long without burying it and achieving closure for the family. And to a large extent, it will feed into the election. Yes. And of course there has been some propaganda from our brothers in the UPND. Maybe ECL is still alive, what, which I consider an insult to the family. But we should all remember why ECL remains unburied today. It is because the UPND government took the family of ECL to court and got an injunction preventing the body from being buried. Yeah, we had all traveled to South Africa to attend the burial, but the government stopped the burial. Why? Because President Hakainde Hichilema wanted to attend the funeral and preside over the funeral. So, to me, that is not a justifiable reason. Of course, this matter is still in court, but in my view, that is not a justifiable reason to stop the burial of anyone from taking place because you want to attend. Even if the person who has died is my father. By the way, I lost my father already, so even if the person who has died is my father and the family decide that Sean Tembo should not attend his father's funeral, I cannot go to court and prevent my father from being buried simply because the family has decided that I should not attend the funeral. I cannot do that. Yes, and remember, I would be the son, so I would be a major stakeholder, but I can't do that. Yeah, if whatever disagreements we have, let those disagreements be between us, the living, and not about the person who is no more. You understand? So whatever disagreements that the UPND government or President Hakainde Hichilema may have or may have had with the Lungu family, those disagreements should have been pursued between government and the Lungu family. It should not have gone to undermine the dignity of ACL by keeping him in a deep freezer for this prolonged period of time. That is inhuman.
It's inhuman.
Yes, it's inhuman. That behavior is inhuman. It is un-African, and it is completely un-Zambian. You know, the moment that the family made a decision that they were going to bury their relative in South Africa, government should have said, that's regrettable. We would have wanted our 60th Republican president to be buried here in Zambia, but given the views and the emotions of the family, we respect that. If my memory serves me right, there was an offer for the vice president to attend the funeral if it was held in Zambia. So the person that the family had an issue with in terms of attending the funeral was President Hakainde Hichilema himself, and not necessarily the government per se. So the family was amenable, if my memory serves me right, that her honor, the vice president, can attend the funeral. So it was an individual issue. I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean,
you don't see anything wrong?
No, I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't think the family acted in an unreasonable manner in the handling of the entire funeral, to the extent that we can say they brought about this impasse. I think their conduct throughout the funeral was reasonable, considering that you are dealing with people who are grieving, and considering the background where ECL was prevented from leaving the country to go and seek medical treatment. Even though he was not under house arrest, he was not on bail, he was not on bond. You know, when you're on bail, on bond, or under house arrest, you're restricted. They can limit to say, no, Mr. Chicago, you can't travel to South Africa because we don't know whether you may return. But if you've got no such restriction, you're just a citizen of this country with a green NRC. Forget the fact that you're president or you're former president. You're just a citizen. You are not under any restriction by the law, but you are being prevented from leaving the country to go and seek medical treatment. I think that was cruel treatment of the former president by the current government. I understand.
Cruel treatment?
Yes, it was. Very cruel treatment. I understand where President Hakainde Hichilema may be coming from. I do understand and acknowledge that President Hakainde Hichilema himself, while in opposition, was treated in a cruel manner by the PF government, which by extension goes to ECL as president at that time. I understand that, and I acknowledge that. It is a fact. You understand? Eh? Yes, but when you have beef with people, when you have disagreements with people, my view is that those disagreements should relate to those people while they are alive. You understand? If I have disagreements with you, Mr. Shingogo, I'll sue you. I'll take you to court. But while I'm pursuing that, or I'm pursuing any other means to resolve my grievances, you happen to die. I don't wish you to die, but I'm just giving an example. You happen to die, then I'll immediately stop whatever I was pursuing to you, because you are not there anymore. You are dead, and I'll withdraw all the processes I was pursuing. And if there's a way, I'll even facilitate your burial, because you are no more. That is how humanity is designed. That is how human beings are supposed to conduct themselves. It would be very wrong for me to hold a grudge against you even in your death. It doesn't matter what you did to me, but I'm entitled to hold a grudge against you while you are alive. The moment you die, humanity dictates that I should bury whatever grudge I had against you. But in this particular case, it appears that in as much as we acknowledge that my brother, President Hakainde Hichilema, was treated in a cruel manner by the PF regime while he was in opposition, and when he got power, he proceeded to reciprocate that cruel treatment. My considered view is that the beef between them should have ended when ECL died. Yeah, that is a human thing to do. Should have said, this man, we really fought. But anyway, now he's no more. And then you facilitate for the family. If the family say, President Stephen Mkabwele, say, okay, yeah, it's fine. Vice President will attend the funeral. Because they had serious beef, personal beef between them. We can't run away from that. But for him to bring about this equation where up to now we haven't buried ACL is pursuing the vendetta a little bit too far. He needs to consider pulling back and bring about closure. That's my view.
President Tembo, I want to appreciate you sincerely for coming through on tonight's edition of Matters Arising.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wishing you the very best as you run again. You're running again this year.
Yes.
You'll be on the ballot this year.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and a very good evening to all the viewers out there.
That's why we wrap up tonight's edition of Matters Arising. My guest was Sean Enoch Tembo, President of the Patriots for Economic Progress, PEP. He joined me as we dived into his views on various critical matters. On behalf of the entire production crew, my name is Poshingongo. Good night.